Evening, folks. It's time to do an update on two beers that I made. A viewer of mine reminded me that I haven't done any updates on a couple of beers that I did. One of them is the ECY20 Bug County beer that I did 2 years ago, and the other is a semi-spontaneous beer that I did a year ago. I ended up blending the two beers together. The ECY20 Bug County is from a yeast company called East Coast Yeast. It's kind of the white whale of sour blends, if you will. It comes out once or twice a year in the wintertime, and it's available on like one homebrew site, lovetobrew.com, and it usually sells out the first day that it comes out, and if you don't get it, tough luck. You gotta wait till next year. So in 2013 I ordered it. I was able to get it, and I brewed a beer with it. I also soaked or steeped oats in the boil to try to get starches in the boil to try to replicate a turbid mash that will, with those starches in the mash, supposedly over time the Brettanomyces and the Pediococcus will break those starches down and consume the sugars from that, and wanted to see what the effects of that was. Now that beer was a little bit one-dimensional, actually. The starches, the turbidity did go away. I didn't really notice if that had any effect on the beer or not. But the beer was a little bit one-dimensional, just kind of sour. It had kind of a, some basic fruit notes that you get in an aged sour beer, but nothing too complex. A little bit of maybe a sweat funk to it that you could pick up on a little bit. In April, I took 2 gallons of that spontaneous ferment, the East Coast Yeast 20 Bug County beer. Took 2 gallons out and I blended it with some of my house culture beer, and then I refilled it with wort, and I pitched the Southeast Farmhouse B3 yeast that was given to me by David Thornton from Southeast Labs. Look for them opening up hopefully soon here, and that actually improved the beer a lot. Sat for about 6 months and got a lot better fruit character in that beer from doing that. Now the semi-spontaneous beer was interesting. I left the lid off overnight. By the way, I'll link the 2 videos, brew day videos, to both of these beers in this video. But the semi-spontaneous beer I left with the lid overnight to cool down. I pitched dregs of Surette from Crooked Stave. I also pitched some yeast cake from another sour beer, and I don't remember what it was. I didn't record that, so that was kind of stupid. But that beer aged for about a year. For 6 months it had a burnt rubber character to it. That went away at just about 6 months, as far as I could tell. And it was a little bit more acetic, a little bit of like a green apple kind of esters in it, and a little bit acetic, not very sour. An interesting beer. Had more bitterness from the lambic hops that I used, which I liked. It was like an earthy bitterness that these lambic hops tend to give in my experience, and I like that a lot. So I chose to blend the beers to 50-50. One half of the blend I put loquats in for 2 months, and the other half I dry hopped. I dry hopped for 2 days with 3 ounces of El Dorado and 3 ounces of Galaxy. That's on 5 gallons of beer, and that's the beer that I'm going to taste tonight. I'm not going to bother with the tasting the loquat one, so I've already made a loquat beer on this channel. So let's get into this, and I'll let you guys know what I think. So it pours pretty highly carbonated, still a little bit cloudy, not super clear in this glass. Nice pillowy head. The head will dissipate pretty quickly, as it does on a lot of sour beers in general. Let's get an aroma on it. So I get a lot of lemon, fresh lemon. I identify that with the El Dorado. You also get some lemon rind, and maybe some like really fresh grapefruit, like the meat of the grapefruit. Pick up on the malts just a little bit, just a hint of a Pilsner type of malt character to it. You might get a slight bit of a grassiness out of it. Just maybe a hint of oak. I used oak spirals in the ECY20 part of the blend. And a lot of different fruit characters, a lot of like fresh fruit, like you just cut open a fruit and you were smelling it directly. That's kind of what it smells like. A little bit different than a hoppy beer, because you also pick up on the acidity, and it's more, it's definitely more fruit-like than it is hop-like, if you can imagine that. All right, cheers. It's got a lot of bitterness up front. I think some of that comes from the hops. I think some of it's also residual from the lambic hop. And you definitely taste the essence of the hops quite a bit. It comes through in this beer. So you get a lot of orange. You get hints of grapefruit in the background. The El Dorado is kind of forward. Now, the thing about dry hopping sour beers, if you've never had one, is that they extract the hop oils really, really well. Probably better than IPAs do. And that's why I call this beer on Untapped. I call it sours aren't the new IPA. Sours are what IPAs wish they could be. Some people think that's funny. Some people are a little offended when they're IPA drinkers, I guess. I don't know. If they were to have the dry hopped beer next to the not dry hop beer, they would understand why. This beer has a lot of hop character in it, but you might not really know it if you weren't used to drinking sours without hops in them. So you get a lot of fruit lingering, a little bit of oak lingering as well. Like I said, the fruit character is like a sweet orange, a little bit of grapefruit in the back. Earthy bitterness on the front, like a orange peel, like fresh orange, not even orange peel, but just fresh orange fruit on the aftertaste a little bit. You pick up on a slight sulfur note on the back end as well. A professional brewer pointed that out to me when he tasted it, and I didn't pick up on it at first, but I do now if I really look for it. And I think that's from the spontaneous fermentation. I think that's residual of those burnt rubber kind of flavors that were in that thing. I probably could have used another year to age on that beer. But I don't get that in the low-quat version of it, so it might be also from the hops. I don't know. Overall, I think it's a success of a beer. A lot of people love it. I took it to a bottle share at the Atomic on Fremont Street. They do a bottle share on Saturday afternoons, and we had Jester King beers there, and Duck Duck Goose was there. I mean, just a really nice bottle share, and a lot of people liked my beer better than a lot of those commercial beers. So people have been giving me a lot of good feedback on it. It is similar to Le Terroir from New Belgium, but it might be a little bit more complex, I think, than that beer, if I can be so humble to say that. Even a friend of mine described it that way. He's the first Cicerone in Las Vegas. When he tried it, that's what he pointed out as being tasting like, and I agree with him. It does. But with I'm not saying that this is as good as that beer, but it's comparable. Other dry hop sour beers that we're trying are the ones from Almanac. Almanac does some really nice dry hop sours, usually dry hop with one particular sour, and they do a really good job with those. So if you get Almanac sour beers, try the dry hopped ones. Let's see. So I think that's about it for this tasting video. I'm going to wrap this up in this playlist for both of these beers. You guys can check out the brew videos if you want, and that's it for me. Cheers. Thanks for watching.